Hello, I'm Joseph Barker, and welcome to the Finding Ability podcast, a place where people are able, adaptable, brave, loving, and exceptional. This is a place where we get into deep conversations about how we can make our lives better and how we can make the world a better place. Good morning, evening, weekend, weekday, or whenever it is that you're listening to this. I'm Joseph Barker, and welcome to Finding Ability. Today is a Solocast, and to get right to the point, it's going to be unpacking this understanding that human beings are adaptable. When I first got the idea of Finding Ability, it wasn't as a podcast specifically, but it was a place for me to put all of the experience that I've had in the health, wellness, athleticism, therapeutic worlds that I've been a part of for more than half my life. And so I had this idea of everyone is able, everyone is adaptable, brave, loving, and exceptional. I actually didn't get the idea of exceptional, though. That came from Janet Frood of Horizon Leadership. And she's an amazing person, such a capacity to be present and to listen and to support. As I've kind of spent more time in the London, Ontario community, I've really seen how much she and people within her circle have helped to support so much of the creation of culture and community within London. There's a lot of maybe more quiet people. I don't know if Janet's quiet all the time, but who have really put in everything that they have to make this city a better place. And so, this idea of everyone is adaptable, brave, loving, and excellent. Today, I want to focus specifically on adaptability. Human beings are wildly adaptable. Some people may say that we're the most adaptable out of all the different species within this world, which might be true. We also have maybe a lot of vulnerabilities too. Let's begin. So, in some ways that I know that I have been adaptable in my own self is the fact that who we are as people, our mindsets and our bodies are adaptable to whatever situations that we put ourselves in. And so we might have this kind of fear, or we don't want to put ourselves into maybe stressful or different situations. But it doesn't take very long for our bodies and our minds to adapt into those circumstances. Now, this can be seen in, say, schooling, where, our default mode isn't to maybe learn for 8 hours a day or to read for that long, or to be socially engaged for that long. But it then just becomes habitual, and we become adaptive to that situation. I can see it in humans' ability to withstand extreme temperatures, whether that's the extreme hot or the extreme cold. If anyone knows me, they probably know that I love cold water. I also love hot water too. Hot tubs are great. Steam rooms are great. Saunas are great. But hot and cold is also great together. But us as human beings do have a natural capacity for thermoregulation, for the ability for our bodies to regulate ourselves kind of no matter what the external conditions are. And that's a skill that takes time to develop, but is something that is really interesting and is something that does have a myriad of benefits that people weren't really aware of, say, 30 years ago or even 5 or 10 years ago. There's a lot of literature that's now really supporting how beneficial it actually is. And I think that goes back into the fact that human beings are, at the base of everything, an animal. And for us to be these biological beings interacting within like a physical biological world, we've had to evolve with these different mechanisms to allow us to be adaptive to different situations, whether it's the Arctic or whether it's the Sahara Desert. Human beings have a capacity to be adaptable and to make things work even when there's a lot of adversity. And so there's a few ways that I've also seen people be adaptable in a kind of mental capacity. So moving away from the more physical into the mindset. People who are adaptable have the ability for systems thinking and to experiment. To understand that, you know, it is crazy to do the same thing over and over again and to expect a different result. But if you can change what you're doing, you can change the results. And if you want results that are different than maybe what the normal culture would dictate, you're going to have to do some different things. To be able to see that when there's failure, it's not actually a bad thing. It's actually one of those steps towards finding more capacity and more ability. It's interesting to see this in myself, but also in others, where when there's a failure and there's this deep or heavy emotion laid around it, like guilt or shame or whatever it might be, it can really get in the way of being able to learn from that experience. It's like lifting a weight that's just too heavy to actually be able to be adaptive to whatever that stress response is. And I think that's why different therapies, meditation and journaling, breath practices, a lot of those things are really helpful because they can kind of negate whatever dense emotions are there, and then to be able to look at it with fresher, with clean eyes, so that you're pulling yourself out of that situation of emotional density to then look at things a bit more objectively, and from a place of maybe more wholeness or power, to then move to the next step. And this reminds me of a conversation that I had with one of my good friends about a month ago or so. And it was specifically talking about the pandemic and being an entrepreneur. And it was so funny because he was saying so many things that I myself experienced and had difficulties with. Like, dude, I know that I'm adaptable. I know that I can crush it. I know that I can kill it. But why can't I? And my response is kind of, I don't know. There is this interesting thing that I feel like has happened with the pandemic, is that there's so much more unknowingness that it's kind of taken away the legs of so many people who were used to being adaptive and able to crush and able to kick ass. And since that conversation, what's interesting is that both of us have then been able to kind of pivot our businesses to be even more successful than they were previous. But there was the importance of being able to name what was going on, which was this dis-ease or this like internal disconnection or discontent of like, why is this hard and like, why is this so challenging? When we know that we have the capacity or the ability to kick ass, why is there this deep inability sometimes to take action on it? And that's something that I still don't particularly know outside of just take action. Which kind of sounds like maybe too simple, because there's times where you just need to chill and pause. But I've found also that in taking pauses, whether it's contemplation or meditation or finding quiet in a literal sense, or going out into nature, it doesn't always provide answers, but it does provide a kind of stabilization or a peace that is then a great foundation to then take action upon. Adaptable people maybe don't whine, and they don't blame. This is something that I've seen with a lot of very successful people. Having a level of self-awareness in which they're not complaining and reprogramming their brain to see the problems, and they don't take blame. They're taking a greater responsibility to take action and to get things done, and to not hold other people accountable when maybe they can just take the responsibility and do what's necessary. This is something that I've seen quite often with many of my clients and friends and people within different social spheres, is that a lot of the time the people who are the most capable are the ones who complain the least, the ones who are the most able, or the ones that know their own limitations and know when they need to ask for assistance from somebody else who's much more able than they are. And there isn't this kind of like guilt or this blaming. There isn't this kind of stuckness within the victim consciousness. There's personal accountability, responsibility, and a kind of ease or a grace of letting things happen as they were supposed to. And something that I've been thinking about and contemplating a lot over the last little while, with some of the free time that I was granted with this pandemic, is what is the difference between people who are maybe a little bit more enlightened to people who are a little bit less. And I don't want that to sound like a judgmental thing. Enlightened probably isn't the best term, but more self-aware. And I think it's curiosity. I think that when someone can open up their mind to curiosity, that is, in a way, continuing the forward momentum of action and not getting stuck or blocked somewhere, which I feel like everyone has quite a lot of that within their lives in various capacities. So how can you move forward with a curious mind, or a mind that's full of awe? And that's something that I know that I've had for quite a long time, not to showboat or anything. And it's just given so much fullness to my life to have had the experience of just being curious about everything: biology, drama, history, geography, chemistry, art, culture. And maybe, there's some getting lost in the intellectualization of things as opposed to just kind of experiencing them. But I find that as someone gains more curiosity and they learn more, or they have more context, they become less afraid. I think that as we begin to know something more and more, it's less scary because it's less in the unknown. And to a certain capacity, we're always going to be unable to fully understand anything because everything is infinitely complicated, maybe, or we're unable to understand it. But I have definitely found that as one knows more of something, they have a better internal framework of how to work within that. And I think that that's an important thing to just know. If you're afraid of dying, well, heck, there's like thousands of books written on the subject, and there's There's dozens of practices that you can do to gain more insight into it. There's different therapeutic modalities that you can do. And I think that being stuck in fear is one of the main disabilities that humans have. And I don't think that it's always conscious or that we're conscious of it. It's just so deeply hardwired into our biology and into our understanding of life. Be afraid. Or not. Okay. So, any other things? No. Nothing comes to mind right now. I really do believe that human beings are adaptable. Humans have crossed the Antarctic with skis, climbed Mount Everest just wearing a bathing suit and boots, climbed Mount Kilimanjaro just wearing boots and underwear, marathons or ultra marathons in hot deserts. Human beings can dive down more than 100 meters on a single breath and come back up. We are adaptable as a species. And it's important to not forget that that we are adaptable, and that whatever limitations that we're facing right now, those things can be overcome. And it might take a conversation with someone who has a better understanding of what that is, or maybe we just have to have a real conversation with ourselves to really push through whatever's going on. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a great rest of your day.